be making a couple of campfire forks for roasting marshmallows or hot dogs, that kind of stuff. So I'm going to show you how I do that. These are available on my shop at grapevineforge.com. So I start off with some 3/16 square, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to flatten the end about the width of my anvil here. I use my anvil for measuring a lot of things. So about 3.5, 4 inches. So I'm going to heat that length up on the end of a piece of square stock here, and we'll flatten it. You don't want it too flat. These are going to turn into the fork tines, so you want to leave a little meat there, but you're flattening it so that you can split it. So I go about the width of my anvil here, and I start on this far or close edge. And just work all the way down, and then I kind of go back and clean it up a little bit. So what you'll be left with is a piece flattened like that. I kind of leave a little shoulder right there. Alright, so that gives you enough width to get your wide chisel onto to start splitting that. So that's what I'm going to do next. So I will get that hot again. The first time chiseling it, I just kind of score it. I don't want to put a whole lot of depth in there yet, because this is where I make a lot of my mistakes. I'll be putting the chisel in, and I'll get a little too far to the left or the right, and then one of the tines is really thin and the other one's really thick, and that causes all kinds of problems. So the first thing you want to do is stay straight down the middle as much as you can, and just kind of score it in, so that way if you really screw up, it's not, damage hasn't been done too bad yet. Alright, so it's warm. You lay it on the anvil, get your chisel, and I start at the very tip, and I lay my chisel just as much in the middle as I can do with my eyeballs, and then I'm just going to kind of lightly lay the score in, which will just give me something to feel when I go to actually put the split in this. And then I don't go all the way to where I started flattening. I go about 1/4 of an inch ahead of that, because I want to leave a little bit of, you just want to leave a little steel there at the, right where the crotch of the split is, because otherwise you have a tendency to break these things off, and that's no good. Alright, so now that you have the score, you can kind of go back through and give it a little bit more. Alright, now I need heat. Well, let me show you. Alright, so now you can see kind of how far I left from the end. And that's pretty well down the middle. Alright, let me heat it up, and then we can cut through, hopefully. So these end up being, what do I say? I think 32 to 34 inches long. When they're done. I'll show you what we do on the handle. You lose a little bit of length there, but obviously you can make these as long as you want. But that's just what these end up for me, because I use a long, 6-foot piece of steel, something like that, 7 foot, and cut it in half. So that's just what I end up with. I think that's what I use. I could be wrong. Alright, let's see if we can get through this. So I'm going to do some of my splitting here on the face, but as soon as I feel like I'm going to go through, I'm going to move down to the step of the anvil, because I don't want to mess up my face here. My beautiful face. My anvil has the beautiful face, not me. Alright, so let's move down to the step. There it goes. I find just a good solid, like you don't want to try and drive through it. Just a good solid whack on on the chisel is enough to split it apart. So then we come back and we draw these tines out, clean up those nasty edges a little bit with the hammer, and we'll be done with that side. So let's heat these tines up. This metal is getting real thin up there, so you got to always pay close attention to what you're doing, or this will just start sparking and you'll lose it real quick. I've lost plenty of campfire forks to not paying attention. So always keep your eyeballs on that so that they don't, you don't get distracted. So I bend one of the tines down out of the way over the edge, and then I come up here and start working on, and I just start drawing out. You don't need to be drawing out a lot. Really, at this point, you're kind of cleaning up the nasty edge that the chisel made. This is twisting a little bit. Let's see if I can correct that. Alright, I need some more heat on that one. If you forge too cold, you have a tendency to break it off, so it's another thing to kind of watch for. It's a great blacksmith sin to forge on steel that's not hot enough. Alright, let's see if I can straighten some of this out. There we go. So I'm just forging down to kind of a point. You don't want it to be like deadly sharp or anything, but just get it to a point, and then come back and just take a little bit of the edge off the squares here. Just take those edges down, and it doesn't have to be round, but just softens it up a little bit so nobody catches their clothes on it or anything. Just kind of dressing this up a little. Alright, so there's that tine. You can see it just forges out to a point there. Alright, so we're going to heat both of them up if you can, and we're going to bend that one down that we just finished and straighten out the other one that was bent and work on that side. It's best not to try and get in a hurry with these, because the metal you're working on is so thin that if you kind of try and force it, it's just going to leave you, and you'll be sad. Alright, let me get some more heat. Alright. You can also use your anvil as a measurement guide on these tines too. As you're forging them out, you can kind of hold them up so that the edge of your anvil is kind of in the crotch there, and see how far the tine goes out, and try and make them both even, so that they're one's not longer than the other, not too much. Just kind of taking the edges off. Alright, so now we should be good to shape these.